Hello and welcome everybody, I'm Joshino, and today let's get down to some more super spicy speculation. Why? Because another Datamine has come out, this time from the OB55 PTS. As always, I'll just quickly explain it. Basically, every time a new patch comes out, and especially on the public test server because they can see the data files, then some people will go in, look into the data files, and whilst not visible in the actual current version in OB55 which we can play, are lines of code and things the developers are working on. Now these data mines have been very accurate in the past, basically getting all of the champions right so far, even though they've been a bit scarce on some of the details, but getting cards right, getting abilities right, just generally they have been very accurate. This time around again, there's quite a few people doing a bit of data mining. There's smitedatamining.com, there's xleu on Reddit, and also the Winterwitch that contacted me on Discord, and all of the links to them will be in the description below and the posts where they're talking about the stuff. Anyway, there's no new champions that we didn't already know about, but there's more on the champions that we do. Most has now been learnt about the Owl champion, likely the next one coming up and in around 2 patches, so about a month now, as there's going to be a break. The next 2 weeks will be just a normal patch with balancing and maybe some maps or other little tweaks and changes. But Owl is that champion that has 2 weapons in their arsenal and they can switch between both of them. The first weapon is some kind of rifle, and the guesses at the moment is the second weapon maybe something more accurate, or might be a scope weapon or some kind of sniper or something like that, likely giving them a close quarters option and a ranged option. The other big thing that we didn't know before is that there's some sort of stealth on Owl, or at least in the files at the moment, and there seems to be some way to cancel it and also shoot out of the stealth. Now how's that exactly going to work out? Is it going to be a bit like Sky's stealth? And like I've talked about before, the stealth in the game isn't exactly that great in the way it works. It works well against newer players who aren't aware of the map, they aren't aware of where people are going to approach from, but because enemies are highlighted when they get close to you when they're invisible, it's quite easy to react to them when you know where they're going to try and flank you from, and you know they're out there. Like I said, talking about the Sky changes and why they're struggling with her, I think there needs to be some sort of movement to compensate for the downside of the invisibility, having the problem being able to be seen quite close up. And that's why it works a bit better in Charlene, because you can jump back before you go invisible, so it gives you the chance to confuse the enemy and just get away. There's also that flashbang mentioned again, but there's no more developments, but the flashbang is still in the data files, so whether that's a small blind, maybe a mini version of Maeve's ultimate, or is it going to be some sort of stun or daze or mini stun with maybe a blind as well? We'll have to see there. One of the most interesting things and why it's likely the next champion is because we know 3 of the cards so far. Now, normally we get the full set of cards, so maybe that just shows that they are a bit further off, and maybe next patch in the data files we'll see the data mining pick up the whole lot of the cards. But so far there's 3 cards and they're all on the base kit, so either the armor or the weapon. The first one's really default. It's 50, 100, 150 or 200 health extra added on if you pick up that card at each level. The second is move 10, 20, 30 or 40% faster whilst holding your sidearm. Now it depends which one this is referring to. If it's the rifle or the more automatic weapon rather than the more accurate one, it could be that this helps out. You get closer up and in people's faces and gives you that extra edge when you're trying to chase somebody down with your more close quarters weapon, and that sort of hints at the fact that you might be being aggressive with the sidearm, whatever it is. And it might be fast firing to really get up in people's faces. The next card as well, again, specifying that there's 2 weapons, increases the ammo count of both of your weapons by 20, 40, 60 or 80%. Which again does suggest that at least one of them is likely to be automatic and to probably have a large magazine size, as it would make sense that that would make it more valuable to have these ammo counts. Or perhaps the weapon is automatic but has a smaller ammo count, a bit like Genos only has 24 shots, maybe it has say 18 shots, so it's harder to get kills confirmed with your automatic weapon, so you might want to pick this card up. That could be the 2 things I think maybe are going on here with Owl. Again, as always, whilst I'm going through this, if you have any speculations, be sure to let me know in the comment section below, as they're always interesting, and we're probably going to be speculating more when the next patch comes out in about 2 weeks, or at least on the public test server. The next champion that we already know about, but has got some more details, is Demon. This one's interesting because Owl was going to be the first champion to have 2 weapons to switch between them, but Demon may have 2 stances. And it might be they're using some of the mechanics from Owl, being able to have the 2 weapons. Maybe they're just taking things and trying it out with the engine, and maybe they've unlocked something and they're thinking, well, we can do a few things with this, and this is another variation. But there's 2 forms at the moment, normal form and demon form. Whether or not the normal form is a human, and then the second form you go crazy into a rampage like Doom sort of demon, that's just to be seen. And again, whether or not that demon mode is just like Makoa's Ancient Rage, as Makoa kind of has 2 stances, I guess, and the fact that his ultimate takes him into like a different version of himself, where he just wants to challenge everybody for some reason. The second thing that's interesting is there's a teleport listed, but also teleport projectile and specifically TelePunch projectile. So my data mining said the TelePunch works with a zoom, so is probably a long range attack, and they speculated, could it be like a sniper punch? Maybe in demon form, pushing through your demon fist through the teleport to fire and hitting through on the other side on the enemy. Maybe the zoom is actually a zoom into the portal, and you see the portal, and then when you fire you see the fist go through. That would be pretty cool. The other thing worth thinking about is that they have some tech that works almost like a ranged attack, but with no immediate effects. So Ash used to work quite like this, so if you didn't hit anything, the projectile would just go off at a certain range, like the flat cloud would go off. So perhaps this telepunch you'd fire, but can't really be used at close range because the fire would go through somebody, so you need to use it at long range, and the punch would come out, or whatever the projectile was that would come out of the teleport at a certain distance. It could also mean that your projectile is more snipey, because normally a hit scan weapon would be best, but if you're using something that teleports in front of the enemy, you could pretty much hit them instantly without there being any travel time and compensating for it, which could be an interesting mechanic there. Maybe even traveling through walls or something ridiculous like that, because we've seen with Genos' ability, he can shoot his ultimate through all the walls in the map, and they specifically made the spawn rooms unattackable through walls. But I think it would be rather ridiculous to have somebody that could shoot through the walls just as a normal attack. I think it would be probably too trolly and too annoying to play against, so that probably won't happen. Another interesting thing with this is there seems to be 2 versions of the zoom, so you can zoom in twice. There's a 77 field of view and a 45 field of view, so basically tightening it up and zooming in, which could work very much like Kinessa's rifle. So whether or not he has a scope, maybe he has a scope in his hand before he fires it or something like that. Also, when you fire, the camera shakes too, so with having a big recoil and maybe shake, it could hint at the fact that this could be a very high damage attack, and you're likely to have to control the recoil and then fire again with a follow-up. So perhaps Demon could be quite a high damage sniper, a bit like Kinessa, but like I said, might have a completely different mechanic on how they attack. And perhaps between the normal form and the demon form, it allows them to have some sort of close quarters attack too. I guess Kinessa can switch to Carbine, which is almost having their own stance as well. There is an E ability listed as the support ability, so whether or not this champion has any healing abilities or properties, I'm not entirely sure. I mean, the last champion we had was a support, and Owl from his abilities sounds more like a damage dealer. And again, Demon with the sniping abilities and the screen shake and maybe having quite a heavy hit also sounds more damagey too, but perhaps because of this idea of support, maybe Demon's a support sniper. Maybe we're going to get something like that in the game. That could be rather interesting, but its own flavor with having a demon and having 2 stances. But anyway, what do you all think about Demon as well? There are also some skins in the data mine. One of them is called Inara Chevron. Now, I like the V-shaped sort of things, but also I was Googling it because I was like, what would that relate to? Well, actually, there's a chevron in geology, which actually I don't think is actually relevant, but chevron folds are structural feature characterized by repeated, well-behaved folded bends with straight limbs and sharp hinges. Well developed, these folds develop repeatedly sets of V-shaped beds. They develop in response to regional or local compressive stress, interlimb angles, and generally 60 degrees or less. I mean, this could relate to a Inara that has maybe really tight angled stones, and maybe really tight angled facial features as well, maybe like even the V's going on. I probably don't think so, but it's interesting that it is called Chevron. The thing that sprung to my mind when it says Chevron was Stargate SG-1, when they lock the chevrons in on the hi-rez, which, you know, there we go. Xin has also been listed to have a barbarian skin, which wasn't mentioned before. I think that could work out. Maybe along the lines of Attila the Hun or something like that. Could be pretty cool. Could work on Xin. There's also going to be a Brazil skin chest at some point for Cassie and Lex. I originally was like, wait a second, is there the Brazilian festival coming soon? But apparently that happened earlier in the year, so that's not what it's for. But there does seem to be quite a sizable Brazilian presence in the game and player base, so it's probably just giving a homage to them and giving them something there. And it could be pretty cool to have maybe Cassie with a load of fruit in her hair. Again, in the data files, there's hints at a Halloween event coming, and there are talks and in the previous patches about necro skins coming. Whether or not they are all together, and there also seems to be maybe a new map with the Halloween event, so that could be hinting at in October we'll be getting some form of themed event in the game for the first time. It'd be pretty cool to have a full-on Halloween patch where, with skins, maybe quests to play the new Halloween map or whatever it is. Maybe it's something temporary, maybe they'll keep it in forever. Maybe it'll be something like Dark Crossing, which was a map in the test rotation, which didn't have any textures but looked spooky on its own and was pretty cool. And one of the more interesting test maps out there had quite a few quirky elements in it. Spooky stuff aside, that was pretty much what was data mined in the patch files currently in OB55, and I'm sure we'll know more in OB56 about the champions going forwards and a lot more about Owl, I would say, and we'll be able to definitely say what role they're going to play, and hopefully all of their cards from the data mining then. But anyway, let me know your speculations in the comments section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed the video, subscribe for more of my content if you enjoy it, and I'll see you all next time. Thanks for watching, Joshino.